Welcome to the Hello Sunday podcast with me, Nikki Hayden. This is the podcast that discusses everything self-development, spirituality and sobriety. And it wouldn't be me without a little sprinkling of humour. Whether you are just starting out on your journey of self-development or have been exploring these topics for years, are completely alcohol-free or just curious about living a more sober lifestyle, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be exploring topics in both solo episodes and with some amazing guest experts. So if you like what you hear, then please subscribe, rate and review. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hello Sunday. First off, big apologies for missing last week, guys. I hope you're all good, by the way. Sorry, just went straight into that, didn't I? Hope everyone is doing well. I hope that the sun is shining where you are. It's actually a really nice day here in the UK today. So fingers crossed it's the start of spring, because honestly, I think by the time it gets to January, everyone's just sick of the winter, and especially when it's cold and rainy and wet. So fingers crossed it stays this way, because it's a glorious day. It's fresh, but it's sunny. I've been on a dog walk this morning and it just filled me with the joys of spring. So long may that continue. So yeah, I hope you are all good, and I hope it is lovely wherever you are, whenever you are listening. You could be listening to this in the middle of December for all I know, but yeah, apologies if you are listening in real time and you were wondering what happened to last week's episode. I know I don't need to kind of caveat it or go over it again, but yeah, sometimes I'm not going to be able to record at the minute, and last week was just one of those weeks. If you follow the Hello Sunday socials, particularly the Instagram page, you will know that we I've had some more bad news about my sister-in-law's cancer and just, the severity and stage of it. So my head was up my arse, to be quite honest with you. And for, one of the days I didn't feel too well. I think my body just had a real emotional reaction and physical reaction to the emotions, I should say. And as we know, the body keeps the score and all that jazz. So yeah, it was definitely, I wasn't ill, I was just drained and done. So yeah, that was the Tuesday. And then that was the Wednesday. And then on the Thursday, I had a call with my coach, who is kind of my business coach, kind of my life coach, kind of my therapist, kind of absolutely everything all wrapped into one. And she was just like, why are you working at the moment? Just take a couple days off, go and do some cut filling activities, and basically just, come back fighting next week, which is what I did. So yeah, I took a couple of days off, the afternoon of the Thursday and then the Friday. And then, this week I feel a lot better. I had a lovely, lovely weekend with my family. Saw my sister-in-law, my brother, the kids. They met Marley. I went to see my nan in her new care home, who is doing well. She's terrorising everybody. But yeah, she's doing good. So it was a lovely weekend. And then this week came back positive. I must admit, there have been a couple of things where I'm just like, are you fucking joking? Is the universe testing me? So I made a new business plan, went on an online seminar about internationalizing, was so positive, so motivated. And then bloody Virgin Internet went down all day. So I had to hotspot off my phone. So it was super glitchy, couldn't really work properly. And yeah, it was just one of those days where everything felt like it was testing me. And to be honest, I had a little bit of a emotional breakdown, which is actually what sort of led to the episode today. Don't worry, it's not about emotional breakdowns. It's not going to be super depressing, but there's a few things that have happened over the course of this last week that have just made me realise that this is absolutely the topic that I need to be talking about today. So first of all, I'm listening to a book at the moment called Let Them by a lady called Mel Robbins. And I mean, the theory is quite simple in that it's just about letting people do what they want to do and not controlling situations. And in doing that, how do I put it? You realize that you actually have no control over other people anyway, and there's no point in stressing over and pushing for something that you can't control, because it's only going to end badly. You're only going to be frustrated. So listening to that book, the other side of that theory, and I'm not going to go into the let them theory too much today because it's a whole thing in itself, but the other side of the let them theory is let me. And let me is all about how other people allowing you to do the things that you want to do and live the life that you want. But within the theory itself is a reflection of you and like an examination of what it is that you have done, or the responsibility that you need to take for your life and your feelings. So for example, I'm probably not explaining this very well. For example, one of the theories in the book, or one of the examples in the book is, you open social media, and this happened to Mel Robbins herself, opened social media and saw a group of girlfriends that she was close with had gone on a break away without her. And her immediate reaction was, how rude, how upsetting, why have they done that to me? But then she realised that people don't just do things without a reason, or, they don't do, these girls weren't nasty girls. They weren't, vindictive. So she was like, why is it that they've gone away without me? And actually, in looking at what it is that she'd done to contribute to that situation and just let them do that, it allowed her to kind of let go of the emotions and going down that spiral of venting to people and making out that they're the worst friends in the world, and actually looking at the situation from the perspective of, well, why have they done that? What is it that I've done that's led to that outcome or that behavior? And it might just be that they've asked you to do stuff loads of times before and you've not said yes, or you've made excuses, or you've not been able to, so they've just kind of, it's fizzled, I guess. Or it might be that, maybe they were friends from school and they just wanted to go the group of them and you came into the picture later. Or maybe it is that you have done something to one of them that you're not aware of. I've actually been in a situation recently where a friend of mine wasn't aware of something that she'd done to another friend, and the other friend was being cold with her and she didn't know why, and she couldn't figure it out, and I was told the information. So it's sometimes you just aren't aware of your behavior or what you've done. So, at that point you could maybe go and ask them. But the thing that struck me the most was the part about taking kind of radical responsibility for, these people aren't nasty or bad people. So why has that happened? What is it that I've done? How have I contributed to that situation? So that had kind of come about, and I knew that it was something I wanted to talk about. Then my coach also brought up the book that she was reading it, and so did 2 or 3 other people. Someone that I follow on YouTube was also reading it. So this was all kind of if all these people are interested in this theory, there's got to be something to it. I want to talk about it. But then also, I was listening to a podcast the other day, Sophie Waddington's Empower State, and it was on this exact topic. And it was really funny because as I was listening, I was like, oh shit, that's what I was going to talk about this week. And then she actually said on her podcast episode, oh, loads of other people have been talking about this week. And I just thought, it obviously is something that we all need to hear and to discuss and to talk about. And so I thought, yeah, do you know what? I'm not going to change what I'm doing. I know that some of my listeners listen to Soph, but actually it's just sometimes saying it in a different way or hearing it in a different way can really land. I have heard so many times about the compound effect, and until somebody spoke about it in terms of the brick theory, which was another episode that I did about adding, a brick to the wall every day in every area of your life, it didn't land with me in the way that it did when I heard it said like that. So anyway, long story short, I thought there's lots of synchronicities. I could have just sacked it off and thought too many people are talking about it, but no, do you know what? I am going to talk about it. So what is radical responsibility? radical responsibility is looking at what is my part in this situation. Now, I don't want you to get it twisted. I am not saying that every single thing in your life, every single outcome, every single, everything that has happened is your responsibility. I'm not saying that. If you get assaulted, or if you get put in a situation of, I don't know, domestic violence or something like that, that I am not by any means suggesting that you had responsibility for that situation. We're not victim blaming here. That isn't what this is about. But what it is about is, if your circumstances right now don't look how you want them to look, and this is exactly what I've been experiencing the last few weeks, things have been really tough and I've dropped the ball. And there's been times, being really honest, where rather than looking at, okay, what have I dropped the ball on? How can I pick it back up? What do I need to do? What has got me to this point? That I've just wallowed and moaned and vented and said, poor me, there's so much other stuff going on. Why are things going wrong in other areas? And, there's things in your life that you can't control, like my sister-in-law's health situation. I have zero control over that. I can support, same with my nan, I can support my family, I can do what I can do, but it isn't something that I have control over. But to allow that situation then to just completely infiltrate every other area of my life, which I had been doing, if I'm really honest, that then is something that I do have control over. I have control about how I respond. I have control over not letting my emotions get the better of me. I have control over structuring my day so that I'm working properly. I have control over making sure that I'm eating the right foods and still doing the self-care that I can do. And this was something that I spoke about with my coach, Rebecca, because when I spoke to her, I had a bit of an emergency session last week when I was feeling really, really spiraling. And she said, you're telling me a lot of the things that you can't do anymore. Like, you can't go to the gym in the morning when you've got the dog. You can't do, meditation when you've got the dog because he won't be, quiet for that length of time. You can't go on a nice sunny morning walk without him because you can't leave him at the moment. He's got this anxiety issue. So I'm hearing other things you can't do. What are the things that you can do? For those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed, water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3 month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. And it was in that moment that I was like, shit, I have been allowing the situation to control me, which is understandable because it's a huge situation and it's a big dark cloud and none of us know where it's going to end up, and it's all really, really worrying and very, very serious. But I've been allowing that to make me feel like I have no control over things and almost just spiral and give up and be like, oh, everything's shit. And that isn't like me. Like, I'm not normally like that. I'm normally somebody that will, if this was a friend telling me that they were doing this, I would be able to turn around to them and say, why don't you do this? Or, let's think about how you can frame it differently. But when it's you, sometimes you just can't. So having to take radical responsibility over my mindset, over my thoughts, over what I could control in my day was really, really powerful. And actually this also, looking back, is something that I wish that I could have done a lot more in certain situations in my life. So for instance, I was in a really emotional, and then towards the end of it, physically abusive relationship with a partner that I met after my marriage, my first marriage, broke down. And yes, I was in a vulnerable situation. Yes, he took advantage of that. Yes, I've found out since that, he's done it to multiple people. I've had messages from previous partners and partners that he's been with since. But actually, in that situation, the radical responsibility that I should have took was enabling it to continue when I knew it was really bad. I enabled him to continue to live in my house. I enabled him to gaslight me when I knew, deep down that things weren't right. And again, I'm not victim blaming, but looking back, there was things that I did in that situation that allowed it to get to the point that it did, that actually I could have took responsibility and control for. I could have been more honest with my friends and family at the time. And it's a really, really difficult situation because when you're in it, you don't see it as clearly as you do in hindsight. There's other areas of life as well. I speak to people all the time that will say things like, I'd love to be fit and healthy, but I've got kids, so I just don't have the time. And then I've got other friends who are single parents who will work things around their children because it's a priority for them, and they're taking radical responsibility for like their old lady or old man self. And I'm not saying, gym 5 days a week, but they've got a walking pad, for instance, that they use whilst they're watching TV or whilst the kids are eating dinner. They will just make sure that they're eating really healthy foods. They will make sure they're getting enough sleep and go to bed at a reasonable time, rather than, one of my friends that says this to me a lot stays up till like 1, 2 in the morning and then is knackered, so makes the wrong food choices. And actually it's making excuses for the way that your life is now rather than taking responsibility for it. So your circumstances right now, in terms of your health and fitness, your financial situation, your career, your housing situation, they are an absolute direct impact of the choices that you've made previously. Now, I'm not saying you have to make different choices, but you can't have it both ways. And this is what I've realised recently. We want to move house this year. I've told you this loads. We want to upgrade our home and have a bit more of a forever home, a bit more space, another bedroom. We also want to be able to afford to go on, a really nice big adventure holiday next year. There's a lot of stuff that we need to do that is dependent on our income. And yeah, I was wallowing and not putting in the reps and the work, and then moaning about the fact that, the business wasn't going as well as I wanted it to this year. And don't get me wrong, it's ticking over. We're not going to go down the pan or anything, but the success I've had the last couple of years has been as a result of my efforts, and my efforts weren't there. And yet I was moaning about the fact that the success wasn't following the lack of effort. So this might be a super triggering episode for you. It might be something that, you don't enjoy hearing, but there isn't a single person in this world that I can think of whose circumstances aren't as a result of the choices and decisions that they make. Okay, that's a generalisation. Like I said earlier, there's obviously certain things, the children in Gaza, anybody in like war-torn countries, things like that. We're obviously not talking about the extremes. But if you are in Western society and you are somebody that has choices, that has opportunities, and you choose the easy life, the lazy life, that's fine if that's what you want. If you know that you are happy with the outcome of that, if you're happy with making poor food choices and your health not being great in later life, if you're happy with just living in, a mediocre house because you don't want to push yourself career-wise because you don't enjoy it, nobody is here telling you, I certainly not, that you need to be doing huge things and making strides and this, that, and the other. But what I am saying is, if you're moaning about it and you're not where you want to be, you've got to take that radical responsibility. Like, you just have to. And actually, the let them theory is a really interesting one, because there's a lot of things that happen where it's not just about saying, fuck them then, let them, or fuck them, let them do it. The real power in it is in that taking radical responsibility. So looking at, if you're getting, I don't know, overlooked for a promotion at work, is it genuinely because your boss favourites somebody else, or is it because you're probably not putting in as much effort and work as the person, or maybe you haven't got as much experience as the person who got the job? If you're having a really tough time with your kids and their behaviour, is it because, they're just little shits, which, let's be honest, 9 times out of 10 isn't the case? Or is it because actually you're not disciplining them enough, you're not putting in the effort, and you're, doing anything for an easy life and then expecting it to come easy? We've literally had this with the dog recently. He, wasn't doing the things that we wanted him to, and he wasn't behaving in the way that we wanted him to. And it's because we were just being inconsistent in our approach. It's because we were letting him do some things sometimes and not others. And we weren't instilling in him a sense of he needed to be obedient and, take our leadership. And so just think about all of the areas in life that you are unhappy with at the moment, that you are maybe a little bit, a little bit dissatisfied with. Maybe you want to up level, maybe you're just not 100%, comfortable with how things are going, and look at how you can take radical responsibility for that. What is your behavior? What is your decision making in those areas? And you're not going to change everything overnight, but for me, turning up, putting in the reps and getting the most out of my business will create such a ripple effect in terms of other areas of my life. It's a no-brainer. Putting in the effort with the dog day in, day out, even when I'm knackered and don't feel like it, is a no-brainer, because it's going to mean that in later years he's a lot easier and a lot better to deal with and to have in our family. There's so many areas that you could probably look at and realise that you've been making easy decisions, or taking the easy way out, I should say. And some of them, maybe you do have to leave it like that for a while because you're focusing on other areas. You can't change your career, finances, parenting, relationship or marriage, friendships all overnight. You've got to pick your priorities and focus on them. But more often than not, it will have a ripple effect. Changing our health and fitness last year has been absolutely revolutionary for me and my husband. We are both sleeping better, we're in better moods, we've both got better focus at work. It's just had such a ripple effect that taking radical responsibility for that area, it was just an absolute no-brainer. And I wish we'd have done it years before. But we couldn't have done that as well as levelling up in every other area at the same time, because it required so much focus and attention that we'd have burned out. But, the next time you catch yourself moaning at something, the next time that you feel dissatisfied, rather than just blaming external circumstances and saying, oh God, they got the promotion, I didn't, or, oh, I'm really struggling to get clients in business, or, oh, I'm feeling overweight and sluggish and not sleeping well. What's the radical responsibility that you can take? What responsibility do you have for that situation? And be honest with yourself. There's no point in lying to yourself about any of this. It's really about, what can you do now? Not blaming yourself, not berating yourself, putting yourself over the coals, but you've made the decisions that you've made. What is it now that you can do to make sure that moving forwards things are in a better position, and that actually, you're not moaning about that for the rest of your life and not doing anything about it. So, yeah, like I say, maybe it was a bit triggering. Maybe you haven't enjoyed hearing this. Maybe it was the kick up the arse that you needed. I definitely have needed this kick up the arse recently. And yeah, look, I've had a few weeks where I have let myself feel shit. And that's the other thing, you have to let yourself feel the emotions. I'm going to do an episode about that actually, because again, that's something that I have learned a lot about recently. Really feeling those emotions and allowing them to be processed is so important. But wallowing them and using them as an excuse to just let everything go to shit, that's not okay. there's people that depend on me and on you, and there's just not enough time to allow ourselves to completely fall apart for months, because the longer that you do as well, the harder it's going to be to pull yourself back together. And obviously that depends on the severity of the situation, the news, the circumstances. But, feel the feels, but then you do have to think, right, how am I responding? What am I doing? And how can I do that better? So let me know your thoughts on this. The let them theory isn't about radical responsibility per se. That's part of it. That's the let me part of it. But it is about allowing others to live their lives how they want to live them, and not trying to control situations. And I think there's a whole episode in that. I'm not going to go into it too much now because it does deserve its own episode. But if you've not heard of that book, read that book, I must admit I don't know what to say tonight, but I'm not the biggest fan of Mel Robbins. I think she's great, but I think the theories are, there's been accusations that she has monetized theories that other people have put to her. But then I guess, is anything ever, truly unique these days? Or is it always just somebody else's idea wrapped up differently? Who knows? But yeah, I really enjoyed the book, and I will talk about it more. But that for me was just something that I have been living recently, and it was part of that. And also, like I say, so many other people have been talking about it recently, and I just thought it's worth hearing. I needed to hear it, so maybe you did too. But as always, please do rate, review, share. The ratings have dropped off massively recently. I haven't had any new ones for a while. So if you're new, or if you haven't done a rating or review yet, please do that. Do that. And also, if you could share the episode on your socials, that seems to be where we get new listeners and some traction. And yeah, be forever grateful. So have a great week, and I will see you all again next Sunday. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at HelloSundayPod, or you can email us on hellosundaypod@outlook.com. Have a great week.